What's up and welcome to the video. We have a fun one. We're going to talk about the Pixel 8. Google has made some really nice refinements to the Pixel 8 lineup as a whole, and I have really enjoyed this smartphone. So let's get into the details. We don't have the 8 Pro right now, that's coming, but let's get into the details of the entry-level Pixel 8. Now, historically speaking, Google has always been the type of company that focuses on the software experience, even whenever it comes to their smartphones. And I think this year, everyone was a little excited to see what they were going to do whenever it comes to artificial intelligence, right? And it's some stuff they've dabbled with in the past and things like that. But now, with generative AI really becoming popular and Google kind of being at the forefront of that with, their Bard platform, plus one extra year of their own internal processing chips, right? The Tensor chip. I think everyone was kind of stoked to see how they were going to integrate some of the Bard smarts with Tensor G3 and what kind of features that would mean for the Pixel 8 line of smartphones. But before we even start dabbling with AI in the Pixel line of smartphone, let's talk about just how great the Pixel 8 feels to hold. That was the first thing I noticed as soon as I took this phone out of the box. I think it really hits the sweet spot in terms of smartphone size, 6.2 inches, and Google didn't do anything too crazy in terms of the design language this year, right? They took the Pixel 7 and they essentially refined it and made it look even better, in my opinion, in every single aspect. So whenever you look at the phone, it just looks a little sharper, it looks a little cleaner, the corners are nice and round, the screen on the front is nice and flat. This phone looks and feels really, really well built, and it just is a pleasure to hold, which is not something that you can say for all the smartphones out there. So whenever you have that experience, it's something worth mentioning. And while we're on screen size, let's go ahead and talk about the display because Google made some upgrades here that I'm actually really, really excited about. So let's start with the one that has me the most excited, and that's the screen refresh rate. So historically, on models like the 6 and 7, we've always seen the entry-level 6s and 7s get 90 hertz, and the Pros get that 120 hertz refresh rate, which is just, it's as nice as 90, but just extra buttery smooth, right? This year for the Pixel 8, it's now been bumped to 120 hertz as well, which I think has been long overdue, so I'm really, really happy to see that. It's subtle compared to 90, but it still just feels so nice whenever you're using it. And other noticeable tweaks, I think brightness is going to be another one as well. So on Pixel 7, we saw 1400 peak nits max brightness, and on the Pixel 8, it's bumped up to 2000, which is a noticeable jump. And I gotta say, in terms of the display itself, it gets plenty bright. The colors are very, very vibrant, and you just love to see it. And as far as display technology, that's also been adjusted as well. So on the 7, it was an AMOLED panel, and on the 8, it's now an OLED panel. And as far as resolution goes, it's still 1080, so if you want a higher display resolution, you gotta jump up to the 8 Pro. But just like any other flagship smartphone that's come with a 1080p display for the past couple of years, it's 1080, but you really can't tell. I mean, colors on this display are punchy, they're vibrant, they're saturated. It's great for media consumption. So all in all, this is a really good quality display. And of course, you still have your fingerprint sensor, it is still optical, and you have your other nice hardware goodies too, like wireless charging and an IP68 water and dust resistance rating. Now the star of the show, basically what's running everything on the Pixel 8 line, is going to be the Tensor G3, and on the Pixel 8, that's going to be paired to 8 gigs of RAM. So just a quick little blurb on performance, right? So the Tensor line of chips is not really going to be your best performer. Is this smartphone going to outperform another flagship phone that has the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2? Probably not. But that's not what this phone was made to do. Like, I don't really see a lot of people out there. Of course, you can do it. I'm not saying this phone's not capable of doing it, but I don't see a lot of people out there buying something like a Pixel to game on max settings on something like Genshin Impact or Call of Duty Mobile. For day-to-day things, even multitasking, this phone is absolutely fantastic. It's not gonna have any problems. It hasn't given me any problems. And for the types of games I play, like Dokkan, even those are perfectly doable on the smartphone. But Tensor G3 specifically is going to enable a lot of really cool AI features that you'll see kind of sprinkled throughout the software on this smartphone, and that's really what it's all about. So let's talk about some of those things that you'll see as you're using the Pixel on a day-to-day. One cool thing I've noticed with Android 14, and I believe at the time of us making this video, this is still currently a Pixel 8 exclusive, but it should be making its way to other Pixel smartphones over time, is the ability to generate your own AI wallpaper. Like, it's actually sick. You can go into your wallpaper settings and you can pick from a variety of different like subjects or topics, if you will. It could be anything from like a gemstone mineral to like a piece of scenery, like landscape or anything like that, or even like some like locations like bridges or crossings and things like that. You can change up some of the colors, and you can essentially use artificial intelligence to generate a unique wallpaper that would be specific and custom to you. So like no two wallpapers might not be the same. That's actually really, really cool, and just kind of a small sample of hopefully what Google has in store as they integrate something like Bard AI with the Google Assistant on the Pixel smartphones. And of course, we've also seen some improvements in other areas too. Translate has some very cool features like a live conversation mode where you can have someone directly speaking their language to you, it can get translated to you, and you can speak it back, all while just holding the phone in between the two of you, which is really, really cool. And there's even been some improvements to the Google Assistant's ability to screen calls and hold calls for you. And those features were already fantastic. So it's great to see that there's been improvements there. But I would say the really, really cool AI-driven features are going to be in the camera experience. Now, before we jump into the camera features, one other thing I wanted to mention, the Pixel 8 line of smartphones will get software support for 7 years, which is very, very impressive. I mean, theoretically speaking, you can buy a Pixel 8 and be good from a software perspective until 2030. And Google also mentioned that they're going to have hardware on deck for those 7 years as well. So if you have to get your Pixel repaired for any reason, you should be able to access hardware replacements for 7 years as well. That's very, very impressive. Like, that puts them on par with a lot of the support that we see Apple provide their devices from a hardware and software perspective too. So that's really, really impressive all around. Now, as far as the cameras on the Pixel 8 go, whenever you look at them on paper, they look to be the same. 50 megapixel wide angle with a 12 megapixel ultra wide, but we're led to believe that they are using different lenses, because as far as the main wide angle goes, there is a lower aperture now, f1.7 versus f1.9 previously. And as far as the ultra wide angle goes, there's a larger field of view compared to last year. And you know, there is also like auto macro focus using the ultra wide angle as well, so that's pretty cool to see. But where the Pixel camera experience is starting to become really unique is Google's continued implementation of new software tricks, now utilizing partially AI in order to make it even more unique than it was before. So last year we saw something like the magic eraser, and that's still here. So if you take a photo and there's some photo bombers, you can just, circle your finger around them to remove them. And Google uses, AI magic to replace the background once it removes them. But now there's even some enhancements that have come in terms of video adjustments that you can make for like a variety of things. So let's say you take a video and there's a lot of wind outside. You can go into the audio, settings, and you can limit the amount of wind noise. You can limit the amount of nature noise, talking noise. I mean, there's a lot of different things that you can do now whenever it comes to editing the video experience. That's a 4K 60 FPS sample on the Pixel 8. I'm going to use this video to test out maybe the ability to remove some wind from the background, or maybe even the sound of that fountain, using some of the magic tools that Google has built in with Tensor G3. And Google has now stacked onto the photography experience as well. So let's say you take a group photo and not everyone's on the same page with, the smiles and the looks and the faces and stuff like that. You can use AI to change people's faces, like in those images. I unfortunately don't have that many friends to actually take any group photos, and it's super sad. But the feature is definitely there, and it's honestly a little freaky to see. But it's an artificial intelligence-driven camera experience that goes in unison with what was already one of the best smartphone camera experiences that you could buy on the market. And I actually really like Google doing this because it's starting to set them apart. They've already been really good from an image processing perspective, and now it's almost like they're just kind of showing off and flexing a little bit in terms of what their AI capabilities can bring to the table. And at a certain point in time, I mean, we really have to start getting philosophical here and asking ourselves, like, what even is a real picture anymore? Whenever you can go in and move your subject around and change the background colors, or use AI to change the type of background that there is, change people's faces after you take the image right away, natively on your smartphone. I mean, all this stuff is pretty wild, but it leads to a really, really unique Pixel camera experience that's a lot of fun to mess around with. But that's just about it on the Pixel 8. I really like this smartphone. I've been reviewing this phone, or I've been testing this phone, I should say, because we haven't made the other videos yet, but I've been testing this phone alongside the 8 Pro. And I mean, if you haven't subscribed yet, you definitely should. The OnePlus Open, that's also coming soon. But the Pixel 8, especially at the time we're making this video, Google has Black Friday sales going on right now. The Pixel 8, from a price perspective, I think right now is priced really, really well for the feature set that it brings to the table. I mean, it does everything really, really well. And Google even upped the battery capacity on this phone. That in combination with Tensor G3, 1080p display. I mean, the battery life is even fantastic on this. Cameras are great. Display got some upgrades. All around, this is a fantastic smartphone. Now, there are a couple of things to consider. There are only 2 storage options, at least here in the United States. 128 gigs and 256. I don't know in 2023 if I can recommend 128 gigs of internal storage. I mean, maybe if you store everything on the cloud in some way, maybe, but I would probably just bump up to 256 just to make sure. If you're going to be holding on to this phone for 7 years, I'd probably just go for 256. Now, here's the thing. Like I said, at the time of making this video, all the Pixel 8s are on sale for $150 off any of the storage points. So you go from $700 to $550, and for I think, what is it, $59 more, you can bump up to 256. So you're looking at $550 for 128 or $609 for 256. At $610 for 256 gigs of storage, this phone is absolutely worth it at that price point. That doesn't even take into account if you have something to trade in. So if you were a little hesitant on launch because these phones did get a little more expensive this year, I think now is going to be one of your best times to buy the Pixel 8 if you've been waiting to see if they would go on discount. But like I said, we have a lot of other content coming, so if you enjoyed this review and you're new here, consider hitting the like and subscribe button down below because we've got a lot of other cool stuff coming. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace. But with generative AI becoming more and more popular, and Google's kind of at the forefront of that, right, with Bard, and, you know, it's another year into Google's foray with their own Tensor line of... Oh.
It's the same thing.
Huh?
It was the same thing.
Well,